What's crack-a-lackin' dudes and dudettes? It's Ness, and you're watching NES Collectibles, and we gotta get in and talk a little bit about the different decks before this super pre-release happens. I've been playing with the Japanese decks, getting a little bit of practice, trying to hone my knowledge of the game and my skills, and I wanted to share kind of what I've figured out, and I'm still not certain what deck I want to play at the super pre-release, but I hope this helps explain things a little bit, helps you guys out, and if you like the video, do the thing. Here we go. So, first, let's talk a little bit about deck strategies. We've got 4 different decks. We've got Luffy and the red deck, which is a speed to victory, hitting fast, and using rush and kind of avoiding blockers when able. This deck is your red aggro deck for sure. The faster you can try and win with this deck, the better off you're going to be. Then we've got the crocodile deck. That is your blue deck. It is a build into kind of this mid to late game type of a control deck. You're going to build into multiple 4,000 plus strength characters while bouncing your opponent's stronger characters and blockers when you need to kind of slow them down, and you punish them when they make an undefended attack. So you really kind of just run the long game here and kill what you can kill and bounce what you can't and get those attacks in when you need them. Then we've got Kid, which is the green deck. This build is all about multi-attack. It's a kind of a mid-rangey type of a deck. It really wants you to just drag the game to a point where you're just hitting multiple attacks in a round, so you're just getting a economy of attacks out of both your leader, out of killing characters with Basil Hawkins, and getting this good synergy. Then we've got the Kaido deck, which is your kind of ramp. I don't want to call it a graveyard strategy because it's not, but it's kind of this rampy recharge your Dawn deck strategy. So you're going to ramp your Dawn to your bigger threats, and you're going to recharge your Dawn to cause devastating effects. And then you really just kind of crush them with overwhelming power because you've put these things out that are either bigger or came out faster because of the fact that you had things like Onigashima continuously getting you Dawn. The key cards for each deck, let's do a quick little breakdown of those. For the red deck, you've got Usopp and Super Rare Luffy and Diable Jambe to avoid blockers. Like, those are going to be your ways to kind of get in and get under the people trying to stop you. Then you've got between your leader, the Thousand Sunny, and Brook and Nami and Jinbei, you're augmenting attacks. So you're taking advantage of the fact that you're getting more use out of your Dawn than the other player is. So those are kind of the synergies for that deck. For the crocodile deck, it's kind of interesting because you have a bounce synergy that's kind of happening, where you've got Don Flamingo, and you've got Croc's ability for his super rare card, and then you've also got like Sablis and things like that are going to continually be bouncing, as well as you definitely want to use your leader's ability to bounce things when you need to. Then you've got a second synergy, which is using the Pacifistas and Sentomaru to get in and kind of cheat a bunch of characters into play and really build up that 6,000 power strength with the Pacifista. For Kid's deck, you've got your leader, you've got the super rare Law, and you've got Basil Hawkins to keep up the multi-attack. Then you've got Drake, and you've got Straw Sword to utilize those multi-attacks most effectively. And as you're kind of doing that, you're also whittling down, whatever characters your opponent has on their side of the battlefield, because you're really wanting to take advantage of the fact that you're going to hit twice, and you're like, okay, cool, I'll get rid of your threats as well as hit you. Lastly, you have Kaido, and Kaido's real strength here is Onigashima. the All-Star Calamities and Jack for ramping. Then you've got Brachio Bomber, Kaido, and King, and Who's Who to remove any threats that you need removal of. And this is something that makes that deck really strong, in my opinion, is everything else doesn't really remove things the same way. So that's kind of what I like about this deck. Blue does do a good job of bouncing, but it doesn't really have removal quite like this. And the red deck only has the one attack, the one event card that can really remove stuff. So as far as the matchups are concerned, this is where things get a little interesting, and I think all of the decks have the capability to win against each other. There's no deck, in my opinion, that perfectly stands out as like, this is the strongest deck. I think absolutely all of this is based on play and your ability to know the cards and know when to play things and kind of learn that synergy. I think that there are ones that have a little bit better matchups. Really, in this matchup, the stages are key to gaining the upper hand. For either of these decks, for red, you got to be fast out the gate and hold to an aggressive, strong attack while forcing unfavorable losses to the opponent when they have to counter. So you really got to make sure that they're dropping 2 cards a turn, or having to use all of their big counters like ulti, or because ulti buffs by 2,000, or you can make them have to use their event cards, things like that. Purple really thrives in the late game to punish with its high-costed heavy hitters, and if the red deck stalls out, which it is kind of the biggest weakness of the red deck in my opinion, you're probably going to have a real problem with attrition getting to that win. So I would say that these decks are pretty even. Then in the red versus blue matchup, blue's blockers can really be a problem if the red deck doesn't get its answers. So the super rare Croc is very good to bury the low cost problem characters, and with no card draw, key timing and aggression for removal and damage focus are what can help the red player win this matchup, but I think blue has a little bit of the advantage on this one, particularly because all of red's biggest threats in this, like for blue, all of blue's high-end bounce spells work against them. So there's no red cards that cost more than I think 5 in this deck, which is kind of concerning because that there's a level here where there's a reason why Shanks is so good in the metagame, and it's because of the fact that he is the high-end red card that you need to close out games. So I think that gives the edge to blue in this matchup. If you want to talk red versus green, again, the super rare Luffy, Usopp, and Diable Jambe avoid the blockers, and then you put super rare Kid. Like, he's able to attack and block each turn after he's played with his ability, and needs a loss in combat to remove him from the field. He's really good. He's a bad wall to have to be up against. Red has the advantage in the early game, but green kind of stalls. It gets it on the back end. So I would say that this is a pretty even matchup. If we're talking purple versus blue, purple's biggest threat, which is the super rare Kaido, is out of range of blue's bounce abilities, which is very problematic. But if purple can't keep its speedy curve, blue's solid bounce strategy is problematic the other direction. So both of these decks want to be kind of control-y in late game wins, and I think I have to put the edge to purple because of the fact that it's got the removal, as well as the fact that it's also got the high-end big characters that just aren't going to get removed by bounce. For purple versus green, purple's removal is very relevant in this matchup, but green's multi-attack, can't. It gives it the edge a little bit here. Knowing the deck is really what's going to make this matchup go either way. So in this one, I think they're actually pretty even. And blue really slows the tempo of this matchup. Its ability to bounce so many of the cards from green's repertoire that green must multi-attack at every opportunity it can to remove these blue threats. And if they don't, blue is going to, just slow you down. It's going to stop you from attacking. It's going to take away your ability to attack the turn you drop stuff, obviously, because nothing has rush on the blue field, or on the green field. So you've got to avoid these multiple turns of removal as a green player, and that's really problematic. But if you get Kid out, that's where the matchup kind of turns. So if I were to pick kind of a better deck in this matchup, I'm going to say blue probably owns this matchup. But again, it really depends on how good the players are, because knowing your deck, knowing when to do those multi-attacks, versus being the blue player and knowing when to bounce what characters, that's going to be huge. So it could really go either way. But I'm gonna give my personal opinion is I think the blue deck has this matchup. So this is just kind of a quick little breakdown. I hope this helps you, gives you a little bit of an idea of the cards and what they mean and what they do and kind of how those matchups work. I don't think there's a single best deck to play here. Everything is going to completely depend on your draw and how the game goes. I do think that there are a couple of favorable matchups, but I don't think this should make you decide not to play one versus the other in the Super pre-release.
NES.